So today for Vlogtober I am going to talk to you about something that I did at work today. So for those of you who don't know, I work at the University of Oxford. I work in student fees and funding, and what I do is I work with students from low income backgrounds and administer the scholarships that, that Oxford offers to them, particularly UK students. It's a really rewarding job. I really love interacting with the students, and it's a lot more than just giving them money, which is something that I really adore. And I work in a team of 11 people where we basically deal with the funding opportunities for all students at Oxford. So that's the Oxford bursary package, where we give basically free money to students from lower income families. We deal with the study abroad funding and Erasmus. Look up Erasmus if you've never heard of it. We deal with hardship funding, so for those who've got themselves into financial hardship. We deal with the fees, for so working out what fees people should pay. There's all sorts of different things to do with student fees and funding. Now, we're quite a big team. We've gone from a team of 6, yeah, they were 6 when I joined 18 months ago, to a team of 11 just recently. So what we did today is we did some training based on something called the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. There you go. Now Myers-Briggs, they're a, I'm going to use my cheat sheets. They are a mother-daughter pair who used the work of Jung in the 40s, I believe it was. Yes, it was in the 40s, to look at different preferences that people kind of move towards depending on whether they are extrovert or introvert. That's 2 of the different areas. Whether they're more perceptive or judging, that kind of thing. So what we did, there are 16 different ways that you can be, or preferences that you can have. What we all did was we did a questionnaire online to start with, and then we got our results, but we also kind of talked through all the different areas. So the kind of 8 different indicators. So it's kind of on a sliding scale, so you've got 4 different pairings. So the different areas have 8 processes. There we go. So you have to decide where you draw your energy from, whether you're extrovert or introvert. What information do you pay attention to? So that shows whether you're sensing or intuition. How do you make a decision? Thinking to feeling. Whether what lifestyle do you prefer? Perceiving or judging. And of those 4 pairings, you see where you are on that sliding scale, and that gives you one of 16 4-letter sections, basically. And that kind of tells you kind of how you work. So we all did this. I did this a year ago in a much more rudimentary sense from an online test, and I actually got the same result this time a year later. So there were certain things that from this training today that made me kind of think a lot more about how I am. It's not something that everyone thinks is a good way of kind of seeing what your preferences are. You can kind of take it or leave it. I actually found it really interesting, not in a way of how we work as a team, but for what my preferences are, particularly at work and also at home. So first things first, where do you draw your energy from? Extrovert or introvert? Now, I'm doing a YouTube video. What do you think? Where do you think I go on that scale? I'm very, very extrovert. This is the results for me, and I came. Now let's have a look. I was very clearly extrovert. That was my. Well, actually, I had 2 very clears. I was very clearly extrovert. Now, I used to present to 16, 17-year-olds in big school halls. I could present to, say, 1,000 people at a time, and I was very comfortable with it. What makes me comfortable is kind of being outside of myself, taking my energy from the outside world. I like talking out my problems. I like verbalising a lot of stuff. I am a bit of a blabbermouth. Some of the kind of bad things about being extrovert is you tend to talk over people unless you keep yourself in check, and it's something that I'm working on at the moment. So when you say you've got extroversion, you have a preference for drawing energy from the outside world of people, activities and things. And they had a really good way of kind of talking about, so your do, think, do, yes, rather than think, do, think. Most people will be one or the other. They'll think and then they'll do, and then so they have the kind of introversion and the extroversion and the introversion, or they'll do the extroversion, introversion, extroversion, which is what I do. Many interests, yes. Breadth of interest, yes. Expressive. I talk with my hands. Outward, action-oriented, sociable, yeah. It's who I am. That I wasn't surprised about, really. Then we move on to the way you take in information. And from there you had between sensing and intuition, right? Now I got sensing, so that's where you have a preference for taking information through the 5 senses and knowing what's real. When you're more intuitive, you kind of have that 6th sense, you trust your hunch as well. And you notice kind of what could be. So you're more of an ideas person, I think, if you're intuitive. Whereas sensing, I like to know what's in front of me. And we had a really, really good exercise where we looked at different paintings. One was a Salvador Dali. If you've never heard of Salvador Dali, go and Google him. He does the most messed up paintings. They're really interesting because you could stare at one for days and just notice things every so often. So she's got us to kind of look at these paintings, and then she went blank screen. What did you notice? And for those of us who were kind of more sensing and kind of looked at the 5 senses and what's real and all that kind of stuff, we noticed kind of the concrete things. So there's people in there, there was a chessboard, there's flowers coming out of the cracked egg, that kind of thing. Whereas if you're more intuitive, you can kind of see patterns, you can see what could be, you try and make a story out of that painting, that kind of thing. And she also showed us kind of a more traditional one, and I can't remember who it's by, but it's kind of like a, I'm not even going to try, and because my mother's the artist, not me. But it was like this painting of this girl in like Victorian dress, and she's very little, and she's obviously the main point, but it was again kind of, I saw the girl, the dog in the front, the man in the background, whereas the intuitive person might kind of try and tell the story about the painting. Anyway, so that was that. The other way that she tried to get us to think about whether we were more sensing or intuitive was what you would do with flat pack furniture. So, we all have IKEA, or at least know what IKEA is. When I get something from IKEA, I open the packet, I take everything out, I spread it on the floor, I look at the instructions. That's what a sensing person does. If you were intuitive, you might go, oh, well, that bit obviously goes with that bit and that bit there. And if you were very intuitive, you're on that end of the scale, you just throw the instructions out and go, I can do this, it's fine. I can't do that. I like to follow rules. When I'm cooking, I follow a recipe most of the time, particularly with baking. So that's that. So I'm now E and then S, okay? We move on to the way you make decisions. So you could be thinking or feeling. Now, I know I'm quite thinking, but with the way I choose to spend my time, there's quite a lot of feeling in there as well. So I'm a brownie leader. I have to show empathy. I have to show compassion. The students that I deal with come from some really crappy backgrounds. So you have to be able to show that kind of feeling side of you. So they say, how do you make decisions? If you're thinking, you've got preference for seeking general truths and objectivity, making decisions in a logical and objective way. If you're feeling, you've got a preference for seeking individual and interpersonal harmony and making decisions in a personal, values-based way. So one of the things that was really interesting to me was actually these two. The first two, extroversion and sensing, I knew I was quite, that's the way I do things. And that was very clear in, we got this little bar graph, okay? So you can kind of be somewhere near the middle or somewhere right near the edges. So I was very near the edges with extroversion and sensing, and that made sense to me. Whereas, with the last two, thinking or feeling and judging or perceiving, I was actually moderate. And this made me really think, because we didn't get these results until after we kind of talked it through and kind of just tried to decide for ourselves without the questionnaire. And so what I am, I think my instinct is head over heart. I'm logical, I'm quite objective, I can be critical in a kind of constructive way. I'm very much based on my principles, I'm firm but fair, and that's kind of that's the way I lean. But with what I choose to spend my time with, quite a lot of it has to have some heart in it, has to kind of be subjective. I have to be able to kind of issue harmony and that kind of thing. So one of the things that she said was, what do you do first? So she gave the example of, your friends rang you up and she said she'd been burgled. What's your immediate reaction? Now, my immediate reaction is, have you called the police? And that's very practical. But my next reaction is, are you okay? But it was really interesting to kind of go, no, my first reaction will be, well, have you called the police? So that makes me more thinking than it is feeling, but I am quite close to that middle line. So the last one was lifestyle. What lifestyle do you prefer? How do you deal with the outer world? And that was judging, which is the preference to seek closure, living a planned and organised life, and setting goals. The other end of that is perceiving, or perception, which is preference for remaining open, adapting to new information ideas, and living a spontaneous, flexible life. Now, interestingly, this is the one where I'm most near the middle. I think at work, we are, and also from school, you are very much conditioned to be in that kind of judging section. You've got to be organised, you've got to bring your books to school, you've got to write in your homework diary, you've got to get your homework in on time, and we're conditioned to be like that all the way through. And at work, that's how you succeed. You succeed by being judging, by being organised, by being planned, by having structure. And I think us in our planner world, for my friends who are plan nerds, that's what we're aiming towards. But one of the things I realised is that actually when I'm at home, when I'm being myself, when I'm not thinking about work, when I'm not thinking about what other people expect of me, I'm more towards the perceiving end. I am not within that perception spectrum by no means. I do like order. I like being organised. I like being decisive. But that word closure resonated with me because, well, you'll see in my cart behind me, I've got about 15 works in progress when it comes to my crochet. I'm forever kind of thinking about how I want to change up my planning system to make it better. So I want to be organised and I want to be structured and goal oriented, but actually there is that part of me that wants to be spontaneous, to have that flow, to be able to let life happen, to be able to be kind of curious and that kind of thing, which is kind of all this stuff underneath perceiving. So I found that really interesting in the kind of how I kind of perceive myself and what my preference is. So that was, that made me think, I think, was one of the things. And then it was really nice to kind of see where everyone in the team lay. One of the things I took from this was that actually everyone's different. There are 3 of us all in the same ESTJ group, but we were, and having worked with these people for 18 months, I know that we're very different in our work ways, and it kind of showed in the percentages that everyone was, or rather that kind of whether you were very clear, moderate, slight into that particular area. So I think the only way that you can learn how to work with someone is by working with someone, but having these kind of indicators kind of helps how you would approach something with someone. I don't think it's fair to go, oh, that's such an ESTJ thing for you to do. That, you know, it's putting someone in a box, which I don't like doing, because obviously the work that I do, the students I work with, they're put in the box all the time. The reason why they're getting their scholarship is because they've been put in a box, and I don't like doing that too much. So we talked about that, and then we talked a bit more about kind of the different ways that you can work with that. So we talked about concrete versus abstract, and in terms of what we say, and then what we do, whether it's utilitarian or cooperative, which was kind of going into the work of this guy called Keirsey, David Keirsey, or Keirsey, Keirsey, and he kind of called it 4 temperaments. So you could be a guardian, which is what I am. It resonated with me, that kind of stuff. You could be an artisan, an idealist, or a rational. And the majority of people in the world are guardians, okay? So we pride ourselves on being dependable, helpful, hardworking. We make loyal mates, responsible parents, and stabilising leaders. I like that. We tend to be dutiful, cautious, humble, focused on credentials and traditions. We're concerned citizens who trust authority, join groups, seek security, prize gratitude, and dream of meting out justice. Yes, I like it. I also like the first sentence of this page. It's like a whole page of what we are. We are the cornerstone of society. Anyway, some of the things that were on this list frustrated me though. So, for example, guardians can have a lot of fun with their friends, but they are quite serious about their duties and responsibilities. They take pride in being dependable and trustworthy. If there's a job to be done, they can be counted on to put their shoulder to the wheel. That frustrates me slightly. So, I am known as the planner in my group. I'm the organiser. I make sure people are where they need to be. That frustrates me, because to me, that means that people will rely on me to organise them. And that's fine, but sometimes I really wish other people would do it. Other people would step up. So that's the frustrating part of my personality, is that eventually I'll just go, oh, for God's sake, I'll just do it. Because I know I can, and that's fine. But yeah, so that was a really interesting thing. We did have lots of kind of different activities that we had to do, so we had to think of our holiday, like our perfect holiday within like the Guardians, and then try and sell it to one of the Rationals, which was really interesting. And then we talked about kind of how we adapt to change and think about change. And one of the things that came out when we were talking about, like people in the same kind of grouping as me, talked about it was how we're open to change, but we want to know why. That's how I deal with it. If someone says, I want to change this, and I go, okay, why? And show me the reason why. I'm very, like, once it's been decided, do it now. Do it. That's my reaction. But actually I want to kind of have the data behind it before we move forward. So that was my afternoon. It was really interesting, actually. I don't know how much I'll be kind of taking it seriously, well, not seriously, but kind of on board within my work life, but it was interesting to see where I kind of fit for my own personality more than anything, my own preferences. So there you go. It's quite a hardcore Vlogtober day for you. Hopefully I'll have something light-hearted for you tomorrow, and I will see you then.